really benefited from your experience shared. But I think what I saw this past application cycle, maybe more so than in previous years, was an incredible amount of anxiety on behalf of the high achievers who have, almost perfect IB scores or perfect IB scores, have never seen a B in their lives. They understand what's at stake in terms of how competitive the admissions process is, but somehow they still fixate on one particular university as embodying the definition of success, which is something, of course, I and the other counselors try to dissuade and, steer them away from. But they feel that I'm applying early, let's say, to Princeton. If I don't get in, my self-worth as a human being is nothing. And they almost spiral into a self-doubt, depression, and they wonder if I'm going to get accepted anywhere now. So I think, again, you had a very interesting experience. Why don't you take us through how you viewed the process, how many schools you had applied to early, and then kind of we will take it from there after you received your result.
All right. Yeah, I can totally relate to the kids who have self-doubt. I did as well. Like Stanford was my embodiment of success. And the counselors at Hale told me, like my counselor Tim sat me down and he was like, Paul, there's a 95% chance you would not get into Stanford because that's the percentage of acceptance, right? And we have to accept that now. That did help to an extent, but I was like, no, I want to get into Stanford. That's it. That's all I ever need to do. And then the results came out. I was deferred, and I was like, yeah, this is the end. I cannot go through it. Next morning, I go to Tim, and I have a really sad face on. I enter the office. He's like, rejection? I'm like, no, deferral. He's like, come on, dude. You can't be sad about that. You got deferred by one of the best universities in the world. Cheer up. It's not a bad thing. Again, the thing that helped a lot was that I applied to around 4 or 5 universities early. So it was Michigan, Purdue, and a bunch more. And I got accepted into those before Stanford decisions came out. So I knew I was going to a college, and I was going to a respectable college. Not my dream college, but some college. So that was a thing to fall back on.
That relieved some of the pressure and gave you some self-confidence. Because Stanford has restrictive early action, which applies only to private universities. So Stanford allows you to apply early to Stanford, but you can still apply to public universities, as many as you'd like. Right. And
so I applied to UIUC, Purdue, and Michigan,
which are 3 top engineering, physics schools, all in the top 5, arguably, in the entire United States.
Yeah.
So did you get the bad news first? Did you get the bad news first from Stanford?
Oh, no, I got into those first. So I was like, okay, we have a foundation laid on. Like, I'm going to college. That's settled. But still, it's not going to be amazing till I get Stanford. Like, even MIT is not going to be amazing.
Wow.
Right.
Incredible. So the emotions initially was disappointment.
Yep. Hard disappointment.
And then how did they evolve over the coming days and weeks?
Okay, one more thing I want to add is that I stayed up for all my decisions, right? Unlike some people, I couldn't sleep, right? The decisions were supposed to come out 3 a.m. UAE time. I wouldn't sleep. I would stay up 2:59, keep refreshing the page, and the moment they come out, I would check them. So that definitely added to the disappointment because you've been waiting for 6 hours, just staring at your screen and like wondering what's going to happen, running the scenarios back to back in your head. You think about the scenarios where you don't get accepted, but you just push them away. When they become a reality, it's a huge shock. But you have to accept them. You have to move on. And I guess counselors did help me a lot. They were like, you know what? Now we have new goals. Now we have to concentrate on the regular decision applications. You have 8 of them. You have to apply to those universities. Stanford may happen, may not happen. We don't care. We have these universities and we can still aim for them. And I was like, yeah, I need to pull my weight on these now. So I spent my 20 days with it, 25 days after the decisions came out on those applications. So it was sort of a diversion.
Did you channel all of your energy and frustration into being productive for those remaining universities?
Heavily, yes.
Incredible. So did you plan on not, did you complete some aspects of those applications? Obviously the Common App, personal statement. So you weren't waiting and putting the, betting the house on Stanford.
Basically everything done. Only a few revisions left. But then after I got rejected from Stanford, I was like, no, I want to scrap 3 or 4 of these essays because I saw what didn't work. I can try new things now.
Mhm.
So that
Excellent.
also helped me put a little perspective.
And I think if you stay busy, you have less time to worry, right? To think
Exactly.
almost.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So then you piled or you plowed all of your energy into these applications. When did you finish the other applications and when did you submit them?
2nd January, 10 p.m. in the night. I remember that. I was like,
Oh
I'm
my
done with
God, you took it to the
applications.
limit? We allowed you to do that? So
Oh no, I
everything was,
submitted. I mean, like after like I cannot do anything anymore. Like at that point, it was all over. Like no more applications. It's all in the hands of admission officers now. What can I do? My school was still going on, and I've been missing a lot of my school because of the application. So I was like, you know what? Let's get back into that. My club rise, I hadn't been spending 2 months on it, and I was like, let's get back into that. Let's have another event.
mhm,
Like because of these applications, I had to stop the things that I loved doing or the things
yes.
that I was writing about. And I was like, now these are over. Now I can get back to the things I love. So I went for the math competition. I participated in an environmental hackathon. I went for theater shows. And I was like, let me immerse myself into that. Let me get back into academics. And I'm pretty sure that when it came to February 15th, when I had to submit optional extra information form for Stanford, had
Mhm,
I not done those things in the 1.5 months, I would have nothing to write about.
mhm. Interesting.
Like at that
So,
point, I was not aware that we would have to fill a form with our achievements
mhm,
from the time of application to now.
mhm.
And then we did.
And what did you touch on? So you talked about the club rise. So if you were to outline the bullet points, let's say, of the major highlights that you featured in that, additional information section, what did you have to submit?
Well, so one of the biggest Club Rise events was a Shahama cleanup. So we went to Shahama with around 150 kids, and we cleaned up an entire community, painted the walls, painted the mosque, cleaned out the weed, planted new plants. So it was like an 8-hour drive. So that was
Wow.
one of the big things. Then I went to a Mathalon competition in Dubai where students from all the schools in Dubai, UAE come and they fight for math for an entire day. It's in Wollongong University. And I came in top 10 over there. I came on 5th rank, I guess, out of
Mhm.
500 kids. That was
Wow.
one thing. Um, Other than that, I did mention the environmental hackathon. So I went for an environmental hackathon organized by ADIC and
Mhm.
the Dubai Environmental Agency or the EEG, Emirates Environmental Agency, EEA. And our school won a first prize over there.
Incredible.
That was a team led by me. Other than that, I also attached a recommendation letter by Andre Marchio, the professor at NYU AD.
Yes.
These were the 4 main things that happened.
Incredible. And you had already submitted your supplementary recommendation from the Stanford professor
Oh,
for the
yeah, yeah,
early application.
yeah.
So that
So
was
I
the,
asked Andre Marchio to send the recommendation letter directly to the admission office instead of me sending it.
did you kind of jump back into your research as well after January?
Not really, because I had my school exams in March, so I did not do that. But I did end up starting it again in April.
Okay, very good. If we backtrack a little bit and
Hey,
go to,
Peter, I lost your
yes,
voice. I can't hear you.
okay, can you hear me now?
Give it a second.
Okay, just let me know when you can hear me. I think everything is fine on my end.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Sorry.
Okay, no worries. Life in the age of Zoom.
I know, right?
I hope my daughter doesn't come running through here. She's 3 years old, and I think I locked
Oh,
the doors. I hope so, but I don't anticipate her interrupting this presentation. But if we backtrack a little bit and think about, you got your decision now. Quick question: did the Stanford portal crash? Because I know a lot of the admissions portals crash because all of the students are trying to log in at the same time.
no. Penn did crash. Stanford did not.
Fantastic. Hub of innovation. We can expect more from Stanford.
I know.
Wonderful.
Funny
So
story
when,
though. Our
yes,
our enrollment page crashes every time we try to enroll on the day of enrollment.
why is that? Because it opens at a particular time and everybody
Yeah, it
pours
opens at a
in?
particular time, and all 8,000 students, or I should say 16,000, including grad students, are trying to enroll in the classes they want to take, and it crashes every single
Incredible.
time.
I hope maybe they can work on that during COVID. They have some extra time between the
Oh, I mean, it's
Netflix
an
episodes.
amazing social opportunity. We get together, we have a party. It's enrollment freshman party.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you do it like outside, or is it,
Oh no, just in our dorms, everyone, like 30 to 40 students are together and we have horns and shit. And whenever there's a crash and we blow the horns, we scream, yay.
So it's another one of those traditions, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the other traditions? I know in the fountain, you're supposed to
Oh
take a
yeah, so
dip in the fountain.
that's called fountain hopping. We have 22 fountains on campus, and
Mhm.
some are weirdly shaped. So there's a tradition of if it's a sunny day, which is always is in California, you go out and you take a dip in the fountain. It's called fountain hopping.
Mhm.
And there's also a trail which is available online, which tells you which fountain to go next to. So you can spend your 1.5 hours going from one fountain to the other on the entire campus and fountain
Wow,
hopping on in all of them. Yeah.
incredible. Is there an app for that yet, or no? With like
Oh no,
GPS?
I don't think so.
Someone needs to come up with that. Much, but much more convenient than maybe printing out a map. Incredible. I would say, if we go back to when you got your decision. Now you were deferred, right? What was the exact terminology? I'm guessing you knew you didn't get in because it wasn't celebratory confetti and ribbons and balloons. So take us through that actual moment where you're hitting refresh, hitting refresh, hitting refresh, and then what happens?
Okay, so I'm at my computer, right, on my bed, and I see there has been an update on your application. And I'm like, okay, this is the moment I have to click it. And I just paused for like 2 minutes. I'm like, can I do this? What's gonna happen? I mean, this is gonna decide my fate. I was like, you know what? I have to click it. I clicked it. I closed my eyes. And I'm like, the decision is in front of me. I have to open my eyes at some point. And I eventually did. I don't know how many minutes passed by. I did. And look, it said, Dear Parth, I'm writing this to let you know that we have not reached a final verdict on your application. So it was pretty direct. Like some of the letters mentioned that you've been waitlisted or deferred quite late in the letter. So it was
Yes.
like, Dear Parth, it did not say congratulations. I knew what a Stanford acceptance looked like because I had looked it up online. It said congratulations right in the beginning. So that was an initial shock. Like, it doesn't say congratulations. I did not get in. This is over. But I kept reading. And they're like, you've been deferred. But at that point, I also did not know that deferral was not such a bad thing. I assume it was like Harvard, which defers 80% of its early applicants.
Yes.
They have virtually no chance of getting it. So I was like, yeah, this is it. I closed my laptop and I'm like, I hate Stanford now.
You burned your sweatshirt that you had bought there at the student store. But then you came to realize, like you said, deferral at Stanford was not a bad thing. And I'm wondering, how long did it take you to realize that?
Oh, it took me 9 hours till I walked into the Hale office and Tim was like, Parth, calm down. Stanford deferred 5% of its applicants. It defers lesser people than it admits. Calm down.
Okay. So again, focusing on the statistics, right? That gave you tremendous comfort because statistically speaking, you had a good chance of, you were definitely still in the running, but you had a good chance of getting in during the regular decision round.
That is true, yeah.
Incredible. Okay, so now we've covered what happens, when you log in and check your acceptance. We discussed what happens when you're deferred and how you kind of worked on that until mid-February, right? But then you still have another 6 weeks, right, until April 1st. And then what do you do during those 6 weeks, or what did you do?
Okay, this is going to be very particular to me because CBSE grade 12 exams start on 22nd or 23rd of February. So I didn't really have time after that, after 15th of February, to think about applications because my exams were there, right? I still needed to perform well in my CBSE exams because some of my UK applications or like acceptances hinged on that.
Mm,
So I was
because
like,
you're going to be
okay, yeah,
conditional
they're
acceptance.
conditional. Yeah. And I was like, okay, let's start working. So my second to last exam was on 18th of March, and my last exam was on 2nd April. So this is the time when most of my application results came. And my last exam was computer science, which I didn't really prepare that much for because it was not a hard subject. And that's when the waiting period killed me. It was like 14 days of doing nothing, no studies, or like it's summer, it's March, it's quite hot outside. You wouldn't go out. My friends all have still got their exams going on. Nobody's gonna participate in club rise events. What am I gonna do? I spent those 14 days looking at acceptance videos of previous year students. And it
Wow.
was the most excruciating time because that's the worst thing you can do to yourself. You can watch someone make a video about their acceptances and their failures, and you're like, I'm never gonna get in.
So then
I'm
the
just
anxiety
panicked.
built, and now
Yeah.
the nerves are also building. Um, would you recommend that students maybe do something else?
No.
Or
Yeah, definitely. Stay off YouTube. Stay off YouTube for the 6 months.
because it can be information overload as well. And then I think what I see from students, even now, the ones who are juniors, they spend an extraordinary amount of time online in forums, right? And
Oh yeah.
comparing. Yes, were you guilty of that as well?
No, I actually got to know that a month after application season. And people are like, wait, did you spend a lot of time on College Confidential? I'm like, no,
Mhm.
no. Wait, you guys did that? You're like, yeah, we got most of our information from there. Or like our subreddit, am I gonna get in? Like people would just post their stats and ask random people to tell you if you're gonna get into a college. How is that sensible?
Right, other high
That's
school
only gonna
students.
hurt you. Yeah.
Other high school students passing judgment, or freshmen who have nothing better to do, who think, yeah, well, I got in with these stats, or, and some of them are quite mean, right? Like, you'll never get in with that profile.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at them and like, so we have this thing in our dorm where we just go through our subreddit. Am I gonna get in? And we just look at them and we laugh. Like this guy has such a good chance, and people are just trolling him,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
very mean. And I'm kind of glad I never got into that. Part of the reason is because my counselor was like giving me information. I never felt like the need to go online and look for more information. Like I
Mhm,
could always ask him.
mhm. It's incredible. So I think it's almost a form of bullying. And I think some students who are at those universities, they it's almost sadistic. I don't know how else to describe it, to torment these students who don't know any
More
better.
than more than freshmen, it's the moms of the students who have already got into these universities who are passing judgments. You're never going to be as good as my daughter or son.
So the competition hasn't ended for them, even though they've already. I can't say I know any moms like that, the tiger moms. But that's incredible that I think that's incredible that people spend their time that way. But I think it's part of a broader, social media trend, right? Where there's this bullying, there's this digital bullying, and there's this negativity that you can get really sucked into, and that can just compound all of the anxieties and the uncertainties that you're facing, right?
That's
So
true.
for the younger students who are listening or watching and listening, would you recommend that they go on College Confidential at all prior to applying?
Never, never, never. Unless you're having a technical issue that you have no outlet to resolve and you want to answer from some of the people who are going through the same process, I think it's fine. But
Mhm.
other than that, just to compare your stats or look at other people's stats, it's a nightmare. Don't do that. Like your application portal isn't working, you don't know anyone who applied to Michigan, fine, you can go to the r/slash Michigan admissions or called confidential Michigan 2024 forum and ask, is your portal working? That's fine.
Yes, yes,
It's a good resource for that kind of stuff. And it's that, for that kind of stuff. They didn't intend it to be a place where people can show off or criticize each other. But for any
yes.
other purposes, it's only gonna demoralize you.
It's turned into Mean Girls online for colleges, basically. What I remember a few years ago was we had a student, also from Abu Dhabi, who had applied to Brown early. Okay, very strong profile, incredible student, incredible human being. She was also deferred, right? And she had completed a very competitive summer program at Brown as well. So it was surprising. She was a very strong candidate. The next, kind of the next notification she got from university was Washington University St. Louis, which had rejected her. So first she got deferred, then now she thinks, oh my God, am I going to get in anywhere, right? She's totally lost all confidence in herself. And, we told her, just keep the faith. You've done everything right. Everything's going to work out. Very confident of it. She ended up getting into Harvard, which is where she's studying now. And she did end up getting into Brown during the regular decision round as well. And I think for the students that I've seen over the last 7.5 years, all of them who successfully were accepted to Harvard or Stanford, 100% were initially deferred or did not apply early. None of them got into Harvard or Stanford early. Um, we had some recruited athletes that got into Princeton early, to Yale, other Ivy League schools, but never Harvard or Stanford. And I think, they do reserve a lot of those slots for the Olympians, right? Like the truly, superhuman among us. So I think it's important that, a lot of the students hear it directly from you, because everybody sees you now and says, geez, Parth got into Stanford. How incredible is he? And it must have been such a, straightforward journey where that wasn't the case, right?
Exactly. I mean, there's another reason why they don't accept you early, especially Harvard and Stanford, because statistically they're going to only take one student from these Gulf countries, be it UAE or Kuwait or Oman, and if they take the student in early decisions or early round, what are they going to do if the more qualified student comes up in REA?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
that's why they keep their options open, and they only defer one student from each country. Like one of my friends who's from Oman, she got deferred early, and we saw both of us saw our application files, and all it said is, "Wish we had taken them earlier in the earlier
Interesting.
round," but they didn't
Interesting.
because we are from the countries where they only want one or two students at max.
And I think it's something interesting that you just said, because I think a lot of the students that are watching now don't know that in the US, you can go to the admissions office and request to see your application file with the notes, right? So why don't you share, one, what drove you to do that? And two, what did you find?
Well, so what drove me is my neighbors talking about their files. I'm like, what? You can do that? I had
Uh-huh.
no idea. Uh, Apparently, their parents had told them to do it. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to book myself an appointment. So I booked an appointment. It gave me a date of 5 weeks later. Okay, I really can't do anything about it. It's the date. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go check out my file. And then that kicked in, what if I'm really an imposter? What if they didn't mean to take me?
What if I find out that they made a mistake and they're going to find out eventually too?
That gripped me for 2 minutes. I'm like, oh nah, that didn't happen. So I go look at my file. So they rate you in certain categories from 1 to 6, one being the best and 6 being the worst, I should say. But anyway, so there's your extracurriculars, your intellectual vitality, there's your social skills, there's your personal statement, there's academics, and there's your I don't remember all of them, but what I do want to stress is that for your standardized test, it's not a score, it's a checkbox.
Yes. Yes.
They check you. They do not rate your standardized scores.
Yes.
It doesn't matter if you got a 1600 or 1580 or 1570. They check
Correct.
it assuming that you showed vitality and intellectual capacity by those standardized tests. But other than that, so they comment on a few of your aspects. They do a little research about you. So I'm from a town called Jaipur, and I did not mention that anywhere else other than the demographic area of my application. And they had a
Yes.
full paragraph on Jaipur. They're like, this is the town, this is where he's from, this is the population, and this is how it is over there. I'm like, wow, they actually
Incredible.
spent time on the application.
And when did you move to the UAE? Because Abu Dhabi has been home for you for quite some time.
I moved to UAE back in 2013. Yeah, for 7 years.
Okay, so you've been there for a while. But interesting.
Mhm.
And did you feel what did you feel after reading that application? Did you feel satisfied that your curiosity was satiated, or did you feel more confident that you belonged there, or did you feel like, okay,
I did feel like I belong here. I'm like, yeah, the admission people think that I belong here, so I definitely do belong here. And seeing that, I mean, so I had ones and twos, and a lot of things I had twos, and I was like, okay, they do accept twos. And I talked to other people, and they're like ones and twos. So you need to be a one or two to get accepted.
mhm,
I don't know if they take threes, fours. Maybe they take threes, but mostly ones and twos. I was like, okay, I'm as good as everyone else. I can live on my life and like not think about that. But you still think about that sometimes.
because that's something we were talking about at the beginning, prior to the formal start of the show, this imposter syndrome. What is the imposter syndrome, and how rife is it at Stanford?
It goes hand in hand with another syndrome. It's called the duck syndrome. So imposter syndrome and duck syndrome. Okay. I
Okay.
have to explain both of them. Imposter syndrome is when you set foot on campus, you're like, okay, everyone is super amazing here, super accomplished, superhumans. I do not belong here. The admission committee made a mistake. They sent me the letter of acceptance by mistake. I'm not supposed to be here. And it is felt by everyone on campus. Like I've talked to so many people, and all of them felt imposter syndrome on the first day or second day.
Hmm.
And the duck syndrome is basically when you look at a student and he seems calm, but underneath the lake, he's paddling really, really hard.
Ah,
But you look at him and he's calm, and you think, I'm paddling so hard. How is he calm? And you're like,
yes.
that leads to more imposter syndrome. Like he can handle it, I cannot. So Stanford students on the outside seem very calm, very relaxed. They're all partying, they're going to events, but they're also struggling. Everyone is mentally struggling, physically struggling, and they're working all the time. but you just don't see that.
And how do the students deal with the struggle? Do some of them deal with it in
You,
better ways than others, or is it just an ongoing, you can treat the symptoms but not the cause, that it's a 4-year chronic condition?
yeah, you can't really treat the cause. If you treat the cause, you'll take away what Stanford is.
Incredible. So this is something you still struggle with and you're
Oh
conscious
yeah,
about.
definitely, definitely.
How often does it pass your mind? A daily basis, a weekly basis, hourly
I would I would
basis?
say it's inverse proportion to the time you spend there. So when you reach there, you're like all the time, like I cannot deal with this. But then it comes in bursts. Like when you're doing a midterm or you can't solve it and you see everyone else is solving it, that's when it comes back. You have a paper due in 4 hours, which was assigned 2 weeks ago. Everyone else has done it. You're the only one still writing it. That's when it comes back.
Mhm.
It doesn't account for the fact that everyone has different circumstances. Everyone is taking different classes. Everyone had
Yes.
different opportunities. Like you can't really do anything about it. You are at Stanford because you made most of the opportunities you had.
Mhm. Incredible. Very true.
Maybe you need to accept that at one point. I keep saying this. I need to accept it myself. And it's an ongoing process. I feel like that's a process for the rest of the life. There's always going to be people better than you. You can only strive to be as good as them.
Yes. And you can only control what's in your control, right? To try to not be too concerned about what everybody else is doing. Are you friends with any athletes? Because I know you do like to go to the women's volleyball games and the basketball games. Do you have any friends in your circle that are D1 athletes at Stanford?
Not so. I'm in a program called SLE, and SLE does not allow athletes because SLE runs from 3 p.m. till 7 p.m. every day, and that's when athletes are practice. But I do know some of them. Like there's this girl Sina, and she was on the national team for beach volleyball. That's amazing. And I just met her at the library, and like, wow, people really are national level athletes here. And I know there are a few Olympians in our grade. No, I think there's one Olympian in our grade and three overall in the entire undergrad population. And the football students, some of them got recruited this time by NFL. So that was really
Yes.
cool.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not friends with a lot of athletes, but a few of them. I'm friends with famous theater people, though.
Oh, really? Who?
Yeah. So, I mean, do you know the show Gotham?
Of course.
Well, so the lead in that, I mean, the Batman in that, David Mazouz, he's one of my really good friends.
Incredible.
So
Wow.
okay, this is another imposter syndrome. Okay, so I'm directing this show, Hal, which was supposed to go live in spring. He's a second lead in the show, and I'm directing. And I know this guy is super established actor, has been acting all his life. That's what he did. That's how he got into Stanford. And I'm still giving him directions, and I'm telling him what to do. I'm like, dude, you don't know anything. Stop.
Yeah. Were you afraid that he was going to correct you and say no? He's going to throw like a
No, yeah,
diva
I
fit.
was, but he was so amazing, and he accepted my criticism, and he was like, yeah, you're right. Okay, I should do that. I was like,
Incredible.
wow.
Incredible. But that must have felt good, right? That gave you your self-confidence back, maybe because you didn't think that you could pull it off. But obviously, if he was receptive to your feedback and he followed, your direction, then that's incredible.
I mean, he doesn't even act arrogant. Like I would imagine a person like that would in a theater scene would be like, I know the most. I should be the one in charge. But he's not like that. And I feel like that is like everyone over there isn't arrogant. They don't talk about the achievements unless you ask them. That's not what they lead
Interesting.
with.
So you think humility maybe is also a Stanford characteristic?
I mean, because nobody wants that to become the first thing you think about them. Like my friend Sarah, she doesn't want people to think of space when they meet her.
The astronaut.
They
Here's
feel
the
like they
astronaut.
here's the astronaut. She feels like she has so much more to offer that is not one thing that she wants to lead with. But these things,
Incredible.
like I mean, you realize them once you have a continued conversation with them. But
And the community is small enough within the freshman class that that's a football player, right? That's the actor, that's
oh
the
yeah,
astronaut,
and the
right?
number of billionaire kids there are, oh my god,
Too many to count.
too many to count.
Are they
Two
picking
on
up
my
the
floor.
tabs on your? I hope they're picking up the tabs at the parties at least. Then that they
They
can.
are actually no, they never talk about it. It's the other kids who talk about it.
Yes, I remember actually at Hopkins in our fraternity, we had a student also from a very, very wealthy background. The family had donated a couple $100 million, and there were buildings on campus named after his family. He never mentioned it. He didn't have a car. He never wore any kind of loud designer clothes. Like he was extremely subdued. And I think he made a conscious effort to try to, because again, he didn't want to be defined as, oh, the billionaire's kid, right? Which is fair because we go to university to carve out our own identities and try to get out of the shadows of maybe our parents or out of the box that we were put in high school. So that's also fair, I think.
Yeah. There's another girl in my dorm, which is super, super scary. So I'm not going to mention the name. So her dad's a really prominent, I should say, European politician,
Okay, got
and
it.
she couldn't study in the Europe because obviously there was a threat to her life and all that sort of thing. So she got a room in our dorm, which was once given to Chelsea Clinton. So Chelsea Clinton lived in my dorm, and she has bulletproof windows. So that's the room she's living in.
Wow, incredible.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that option was not on the housing application form.
No, it wasn't.
Like the bulletproof windows, please. Please upgrade me to the presidential suite. Unbelievable, unbelievable. And no, it's again, it's supposed to be an environment where you can be yourself and try to get away from all that. And I'm sure Stanford does as good a job as any place could to insulate its students from any kind of, because I remember at Harvard, it was hard to get to class sometimes because there were such large groups of Chinese tourists that would just clog all the walkways. And, sometimes you just want to get into your building and not, can I pose with you? Are you a real Harvard student? Do you have to deal with any of that at Stanford or no?
Okay, so the campus is huge, right? So a little less because there's the center part of campus, which doesn't have any classes, and it's only a place you would go to enjoy. There's the Memorial Church, there's a Memorial Courtyard, the Oval. That's where everyone wants to take pictures, and there aren't any classes over there. So if you go there to just hang out or go to a restaurant, then you will end up meeting those people. Otherwise, we are in the backside of the campus, or east and west flanks. That's where all the classes are. That's where all the dorms are. We don't experience tourists a lot. But yeah, if you go there, you can't get out without taking at least 3 pictures.
Incredible. I think maybe we should, unionize like those, the characters in Times Square in New York, right? Where they demand $5 for every photo. They'll help pay for books and lunch money. No, I'm just kidding. But that's incredible. It's fun. It's a bit surreal, but part of the experience. Incredible. But let's go back a little bit now. So you're waiting. Okay, everything is done. You're in the middle of exams. Now you don't know what's going to come up next, right? In terms of admissions offers. So after you had submitted, obviously you had all the results from the early round. What was the next university that notified you? Do you remember? And what was the
After the
decision?
early round, honestly, I think it was a bunch of UK universities which notified me.
Hmm.
And I mean, it was nice, but I sort of knew that I probably wasn't going to go to them, so it didn't really help.
Hmm.
And I guess there wasn't any significant notification till MIT.
And what happened
So
with that one?
MIT, I got rejected. And okay, so that was a bad day. It was 14th of March, right?
You
Pi Day.
remember it to this day. Incredible.
It was Pi Day. It was Pi Day.
Friday,
MIT.
that's why. Yes, yes, yes.
So MIT, Johns Hopkins, and U Chicago.
They all came out at the
And I
same time.
knew that MIT was a very tough bet, and I was sort of prepared. But I also felt like U Chicago and Johns Hopkins are a little doable. I should get into those. I got rejected by MIT and Johns Hopkins and got waitlisted at U Chicago. And I was like, yeah, that's it. Stanford's never going to take me. No Ivy is going to take me. I'm going to go to Michigan.
Yeah. So now it's not only again, Stanford's not going to take you, but no one wants me, right? None of the good schools. I'm privileged that Hopkins let me in and they rejected you. I will, make sure to mention that next time I see you and remind you every time after that. Just kidding. But that's another
Yeah.
huge blow, right? That makes you feel what now you're probably what's going through your mind. Are you thinking, did I do everything wrong? Were my essays terrible? Or what's going through your mind at this point?
Well, so the cognitive part of my brain is like, yeah, Parth, Johns Hopkins is medical special, and you didn't have anything that fit for Johns Hopkins. Like, you know that you were not going to go there, and they probably saw that as well. But my back of my mind is like, Johns Hopkins has a lower acceptance rate than Stanford. They didn't accept me. Stanford isn't going to accept me.
Right. Higher
Neither are
acceptance
any
rate
of
than
the
Stanford.
IVC. Oh yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So it was just a battle, and it was really tough. It just eats you away mentally.
Okay, so you've taken another big blow now. Did you stop eating at that point? Or, how did you deal with that?
I mean, I was really sad. I didn't talk to my parents. I just went to sleep that night. And the decisions didn't come very late. They came around midnight or 1 a.m.
Hmm.
So my parents were still awake and they saw me and they're like, Parth, it's fine.
Hmm.
It's not the end of the world. You still have like 10 universities who will get back to you. And we've read enough to know that it's a roulette game, or It's a dot in the dark. Some universities like you, some don't. You can't really help it. You did your best, and that sort of helped. But yeah,
But they were very supportive, because I feel like many times parents can be part of the problem. They're more anxious than the kids, and sometimes they're not good at hiding that, right? Which then makes the kids even more, frantic. But it sounds like your parents were a calming influence and trying to put things in perspective, which is great.
my sister wasn't though.
Oh, she wasn't. How did she
She
handle
was
it?
making fun of me. You
She
got
was making
rejected
fun
one
of
time.
you. She's
I was
younger,
so few.
right?
Yeah, she's younger.
So what were some of the things she was saying?
She's like, you got rejected by Johns Hopkins. You're not getting stand. I mean, I knew she was joking, but it
Yeah,
sort of helped as well. Like to joke it off and be able to quarrel with her took my mind off things. I guess
good.
that was a nice thing for her to do. But it's just that the tension in the house was apparent. Like, even though
Yeah.
there was supportive, we knew that it wasn't a very good thing that happened. Okay,
Yes.
let's move on. I still have exams
Yes.
to go through.
Yes.
Next set of decisions come on 22nd of March, a week later, and it's UCSD, UCLA, and Northwestern. And
Mhm.
I got into all three. I was like, wow,
Finally,
it can
right?
really fluctuate.
Phew.
Yeah. Phew. And I was like, okay, Northwestern is pretty good. It's good for physics. It's good for music. It's good for theater. I'm going to
Absolutely.
thrive there.
Yes.
It's a little cold there, but I'm going to make it work.
Very good.
And other than that, I can go to UCLA if I want to go to California. Okay. So that's it. And then there was a 7-day gap and the one week gap,
Hmm.
and nothing happened. Like I was spending my time watching YouTube videos. Oh, so this was also the time that me and my family shifted from our previous house to this one.
Hmm.
So that really helped. Those were 4 days of busy shifting and setting up our new house. That took off my mind.
Good.
So actually, the night that I opened the Stanford admission letter was the second night I was in this house. So it's always been, post Stanford for this house.
So tell me then through the process. So now you have a new date, a new time. You're in front of your laptop, right? Refresh, refresh, refresh. Then what happened?
Well, do you want me to talk about Ivy Day first or?
Oh, yes, we totally skipped Ivy Day, which was another important
Ivy
milestone.
Day, yeah. I applied to 5 Ivies and Berkeley. All 5 are coming out today. I knew I was probably not going to get into Harvard, probably not into Princeton, probably not into Yale. But I was like, okay, maybe Cornell, maybe Cornell. Okay, so the big part of this is I was deciding to apply either Cornell or ED Cornell or REA Stanford. I knew that my ED Cornell chances were higher than Stanford, but I was not ready to let go of Stanford.
Yes.
Like if I got an ED Cornell, I would never go to Stanford. I was like, no, I'm going to apply Stanford. And so I opened Cornell first. I got rejected. I'm like, you stupid. You should have applied to Cornell
Now you're
ED.
second guessing your decision, right? It would have been in the bag. The acceptance rate would have been twice as high, right? It's in the 20s. Oh, man, I made a mistake.
I know. Ah. And then I opened Penn and I got waitlisted. I opened Yale. I got waitlisted. I opened Princeton and Harvard, rejected. An hour later, I opened Berkeley. I got in. I'm like, okay, fine, Berkeley. We're going to go to Berkeley. Nothing else happens. I'm going to stay on the wait list for Chicago, Penn, and Yale, and maybe get in them. Because Yale wait list only like 200 kids, and they take 10 of them. It's not that bad. So, yeah. And I was like, you know what? Whatever happens with Stanford, it's not in my hands. So the next day, my parents and I we're like, we're going to go celebrate. It doesn't matter what happens with Stanford. So the night
Yes.
before, we go to a really fancy restaurant, we get a nice dinner, and we're like, forget about Stanford. You're going to Berkeley, probably it. Like,
Yes.
yeah, that's true. And we're celebrating. We got a cake as well. And come back, it's 1 a.m. My parents go to sleep. And I'm like, you know what? I cannot sleep. I have to wait for Stanford. This is what it was all about. Like for the
Yeah.
past 2.5 years, Stanford was all it was about. I cannot just go to sleep.
Yes.
I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna sit. I didn't do anything. I didn't scroll on my phone. I didn't watch a movie. I was just sitting there thinking about what's gonna happen if I got in or if I didn't get in. It's 2:55. I have to open the website. I don't know. The website was already open. Yeah. I
You had it
keep
bookmarked as your
refreshing.
homepage, or was it your homepage every time that you opened?
So I'm refreshing and I'm like, yeah, this is getting very real. This is the end of application season. I hit refresh. There is an update to your application.
Oh boy.
And I hear like a deafening silence in my room. I
Yes.
cannot hear my parents. I cannot hear anyone. That is
Yes.
the only thing in front. This sounds very dramatic, but this is what happened.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, I gotta click see update. And this time I'm like, I'm not gonna stop or whatever. I'm not gonna close my eyes. I just hit update. I mean, like click on the update, and I saw
Yes.
congratulations. I was like, wow. There was a lag of 15 seconds before I screamed. I screamed. My parents woke up. They're like, "You
Yes.
got in?" I'm like, "I got in."
Yes.
Both of them cried, and I was dancing and I was jumping on the bed. It was a half an hour of celebration. I went back to bed. I cried for a while, and I was like, "This is
Wow.
really happening." I opened the letter again. I'm like, "Did I read it right? Did I read someone else? Did
Yes.
I read
Yes.
both these?"
Yes.
you know?
You want to make sure that it was addressed to Parth, the Stanford acceptance, that they hadn't did have somebody else's name there. Incredible.
Yep.
And the
Yeah.
feeling of satisfaction, what did it feel like?
I did not feel anything till 2 days. It hadn't registered that I'm going to Stanford. It's like something happened. Everyone's excited. I don't know what's going on. And it
Incredible.
only slowly sank in when I got the Facebook invite to the group and I got my student ID. I was onto their system and I had a generated email address. It's like, wow, this is happening.
Unbelievable. What a journey, but a journey that was fraught with setbacks, right? And maybe learning lessons for all the students who are listening now. If you go back, if knowing what you know now, obviously you've gone through this, what would you tell younger Parth, at the beginning, without younger Parth doesn't know what's going to happen and how it's going to unfold? If you had a flying DeLorean and were able to travel back in time, what
Take
advice would
Johns
you?
Hopkins off your college list. I'm kidding.
It's funny. The last Stanford acceptance I had also rejected to Johns Hopkins, and the student who I was telling you who got into Harvard who applied early to, they also rejected her to Johns Hopkins. I don't know what because it's incredible, but yeah, don't apply to Johns Hopkins unless you're in for some heartache. Other than that,
Um, this project, I mean, this whole process is subjective and it's not going to determine your worth. Like, I still know so many more people that I look up to who didn't get into any of the good universities, and I know they deserve so much more. But this is not the end of the world. Like, good university, yeah, you're going to meet an amazing amount of people over there, but this is not going to determine your entire life, right? It's just a head start.
I think
College
another.
process is only valid for 4 years.
Yes, very, very good advice. And I was going to say, I think that another thing students need to understand is they only need to get into one amazing university. It's not a competition. I got into Stanford and I got into Yale, Princeton, Harvard. Who cares? You got into Stanford. That's the end of the discussion. And too many of them, I feel like some of them, okay, even after they get into Columbia, they're still, comparing and they're still feeling less, kind of fulfilled because they had gotten rejected by Johns Hopkins or, Cornell or an easier school. They take it still personally, which I find very interesting.
I mean, you have to just accept the concept of fit, right? Like, you got rejected for a reason. It's not like they saw your application, thought you were worthless, threw your application into the dustbin. It's not that. They thought that you're not going to thrive at that school,
Mhm,
academically, socially, or whatever reason.
mhm.
And whatever the place you ended at was probably the best fit for you. At
Absolutely.
that point, you can totally let go of the fact that I didn't get a Johns Hopkins. I wouldn't be happy
Yeah.
there.
Yes.
It wasn't my right fit. It's
Yes.
okay.
And maybe they just accepted somebody who was a better fit for whatever reason.
Exactly.
Maybe they needed a tuba player, right, in the orchestra, or they needed a field hockey goalie that year, and the best field hockey goalie in the world that was recruited, committed early. So you never know, right? And there's no science to this, as you said, highly subjective. But as long as you get into one school, one great school, then that's it. What more can you ask for? You can only enroll in one, right?
It doesn't even have to be great. It has to be great for you. One school where you know you're going to thrive, right?
Mhm.
Where you're going to be happy. What else matters?
Agree. Wiser words were never spoken. Fantastic. With that thought, Parth, what I'm going to do now is we're going to open up the conversation to questions now from the attendees. I just want to thank everybody for attending before we go to questions, and just remind everybody if they are interested in availing of support services for their applications and preparation, they can get in touch with us at haleeducation.com. We have a team of counselors that will help every step of the way, all of them from graduated from top universities like Harvard, Brown, Georgetown, Chicago, Amherst, and many others. But with that, our colleague Paul, or my colleague Paul, will now open the floor for questions, and I'm sure there'll be quite a few. Hi, Paul.
Hi. Hello, hello. Yeah, right now, it doesn't look like there are any, but if anyone has anything that they want to ask either Parth or Peter, the floor is open now. So feel free um, to make your voice be heard.
Good. You can send the questions directly into the Q&A box down below. I probably should have mentioned that at the beginning, but that's okay. And maybe we answered all of the questions, Parth, on last week's show. We demystified
Oh
everything.
yeah.
That's probably not the case, but we have something I'm sure to talk about for next time. Amazing. Parth, any other closing thoughts that you'd like to share?
Oh, I don't know. I've been thinking a lot lately.
Closing thoughts, I'd say, what message do you have for those younger students, the juniors, who now are on College Confidential, who are comparing themselves, who are watching these videos, who are full of self-doubt, and, you know, in April are questioning, do I have what it takes, despite, you know, the counselors at Hale telling me I do, despite my parents, despite, you know, my teachers. What would you say to them?
I mean, the question of am I worth it or am I capable is not answerable by anyone other than you. It's a very personal question and it's a very hard question, right? Nobody else can tell you about it. Nobody else has the right to tell you about it. Not your parents, not your teachers, not your counselors, not the admission officers at Harvard,
Mhm.
right? It's you who's going to decide, am I worth it? Am I going to put effort into my own life? Am I going to try to do the best that I can? And you need to embrace that thought and accept that you are the in charge of your own life. You don't get in one place, it's fine. You're going to go to the next place. You're going to try as hard as you can to get the furthest you can to success.
And I think a lot of students need to understand that rejection is part of the process. It's an integral part of the process. It's an important part of the process, and it's one that you have to embrace. And that if you have to prepare for it from the outset. And that way, when you do get a rejection, you understand that it's just a, you know, stepping stone to your final, you know, successful destination. And for many of these kids, or almost all of them, they've never experienced rejection in their lives. They're used to being the top students in their school. So this is a new experience, but in life, we are going to face rejection repeatedly, and it's not how many times we're rejected, it's how many times we keep bouncing back. I look at Jack Ma, right, the founder of Alibaba,
Mm-hmm.
who was rejected by Harvard 10 times, not just one or four times. He was rejected by Harvard 10 times. He was rejected. He was the only candidate, you know, to interview at a Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Hey, Peter, I
And
lost your voice again. I'm
yes,
so sorry.
no worries. Can you
This
hear me
keeps
now?
happening. Give me a second.
No worries. Just let me know when I'm back online. Because I can hear you quite well. Am I back?
Uh,
I'm here. I was
Oh,
just
yeah.
talking. Yeah, I'm good now? Very good.
Yeah.
So Jack Ma was one of 24 candidates to apply to the local Kentucky Fried Chicken. They took the other 23 candidates. They didn't take him, right? So he was rejected when he applied for a job as a policeman in his local city. So he never gave up, and look at where he is now. So I think, again, success is very rightly what you said, the belief in yourself and the ability to see your own self-worth without the validation of any kind of external, you know, kind of approbation from an admissions officer or anyone else for that matter, but your resilience in the face of adversity. Are you going to crumble and feel bad and start blaming everybody else? Or are you going to take it in stride and just keep pushing forward? Amazing. Very good. Paul, I think we have a question maybe that you can ask.
Yes, we do. From an anonymous attendee, they ask, how many colleges would you recommend applying to in the US?
Great. Well, Parth, how many did you apply to?
Well, I applied to 16 in the US,
Mhm.
but I mean, anywhere between 10 to 16 or 15 even is a good amount to apply to. I mean, Hale breaks down pretty well. Like you need to apply to a few safe universities, which you feel like you have a good shot at. A few match universities, maybe you can get to them, and a few dream universities where if you try really hard, if your luck works out, you're gonna get into them. So
Absolutely.
you need to cover all bases.
Yeah, I think that's about the appropriate number as well. If you're applying to the very selective schools, because we've seen with your case and so many other cases that you have to apply to more selective schools because ultimately you just need to get into one of them. So then instead of applying to 10 to 12, let's say the normal applicant, then it becomes 14 to 16 at the higher end. And it's very important to have a balanced college list, because the students that only apply to the REACH schools are setting themselves up for disaster. And that's where your soul is crushed, let's say, because if you mishandle this process and all you see is rejections, that's incredibly damaging psychologically, without question. Okay, excellent. Well, with that, I think we're going to conclude our webinar for today. Episode 2, the Parth and Peter Show, is now a wrap. Thank you, Parth. We're going to continue to check in with you. Please do keep doing amazing things. I think you're in the midst of your exams now, your final exams.
Oh no, my midterms.
Your midterms, I'm sorry. Best of luck on your midterms, and we'll circle back with you at the end of the school year.
All right. Thanks a lot, Peter. Take care.
Thanks, Parth. Take care. Thank you also, Paul. Take care, guys.
Thank you.